industry and its impact to our company and the impact to the three people that we want to impact, which are our guests, our employees, and the partners that we have. So as Ibu Anggita said earlier, data is the new gold. I have a slight. I agree in the value of data is like gold. I would call data a little bit more like the new real estate. So if you think about like, oh God, this is maybe a very controversial segue, but if you think about the era, let's say colonialization, where people are going out and they're searching for new lands to grow things, it's kind of the same what I see what's happening in data. If you can get enough, let's say, data, then from this data you can grow products, you can grow an audience, and you can grow things onto it, just like if you had land. So it is very much like, that's why I think there's such a big rush across the industry into understanding data science and into getting this, because it is essentially like a land grab right now. Back in I think about 2012, 2010, there was a gigantic, at that point 10 years ago, everybody was talking about apps, and everybody wants to get onto apps and create their own app. But now there's much less talk about that. And the reason I've seen that happen in the industry is because the app sort of understanding has matured. That market has essentially reached a plateau. Why? If you think about how many apps do you actually engage with on a daily basis, how many apps have you actually downloaded in the past month? It's probably a very low number. On average, it's actually zero. The majority of people download 0 new apps every month. So that type of era has kind of ended, but the era of data science is, I think, still very new and still very exciting. It's about how do you get the most amount of data to understand about your particular user, so that you can make better decisions about what to do. The magic, I think, of good data science is that it's hard to be wrong when you have good data. A few examples that I'd like to bring up is the example of Facebook. So if you think about Facebook, Facebook is almost past its expiration date in terms of, I think, a technology company. The app is very, very old right now. It's probably dozens of years old, but yet it still maintains a way of remaining really relevant to people's lives. Many of my friends have tried to quit Facebook and say, enough, I don't want to do Facebook anymore. But somehow, sooner or later, they get pulled back in. From what I understand, it's because the data is so strong at Facebook. If you know what people are doing across your entire population, if you have enough data sets, then you can always anticipate their problems and their needs. If you can always anticipate their problems and their needs, then you can always correctly create the right product, and you have the right audience to experiment with. So you almost have a no failure system if you can collect enough data. And the other reason I think data science is fairly exciting is this, that after a certain point, every company essentially becomes a data company. So Google at first was working on internet search, and that's okay, right? That was its core product. Facebook was working on social networks. Uber was working on rideshare. Gojek was working on rideshare. Traveloka was working on ticketing. But years later, after you build your audience, you build your user base, what you really have is you have a data mine. You have a huge amount of data, and your emphasis shifts not into so much how you do your operations, but how do you actually, how do you leverage this data? How do you take this data to understand about how you're going to continue serving this audience? And the more you serve the audience, the more income you make. And since everybody likes to make money, that's primarily why the association between data and gold and oil or whatever it might be. So that's a little bit of a kind of like my understanding of how data science is important for an industry. And relating to hospitality, I think it's actually very exciting. Relating to hospitality, the impact of data has actually been I would say, it hasn't really been absorbed by the hospitality industry. This industry is something that has been happening for a very, very long time. I mean, I think the first people who were offering accommodations to travelers were in the hospitality industry. And I remember being Chinese American. I remember watching like old movies about inns in the Silk Road as merchants would move across from country to country to share their goods. So this idea has been around for probably millennia, thousands of years of hospitality. But hospitality is one of the industries that is also very slow moving. There's not a lot of appreciation for technology. There's not a lot of appreciation for how to do things in a more startup-like way. So what we've done at Bukit Vista is simply to take this idea of this really old industry and apply what we learned in startups, lean, agile methods, data science, using engineering methods to actually create a stronger hospitality organization, which is also kind of an interesting dilemma, which I will talk about in my presentation, because the dilemma is, does actually this compatible, right? Is it compatible to actually automate everything and still be able to deliver a quality hospitality experience? And for us as Bukit Vista, that's been one of the greatest challenges, that we try to automate things, we try to make things more efficient, but oftentimes we come back and we ask ourselves, does this actually improve the guest experience? Does this actually improve the employee experience? Does it improve the experience of our partnerships? And I'll show you a little bit more about what we found. So that's my little preamble about data science as an industry and data science that affects hospitality. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen. And I'd like to walk you through a presentation that I have about this particular subject. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see the screen. If you see the logo of ITB, then it means we're on the right page. All right, so this is actually kind of fun for me. We give what is known as BVE talks oftentimes, and this is the 11th time that we've done this. So this will be an e-talk about data science for the hospitality industry. As I said before, I'm not a data scientist, even though I want to be. So I'll be speaking on the perspective of a user of data science, or let's call it, I want to recruit data scientists to help me on my mission. And I'll talk more about what our mission is too as well. Okay, my goal today is very simple. I want to inspire. The motto of my company, Bukit Vista, of our company, Bukit Vista, is to inspire delight. So the two things I'd like to inspire are, first, I want to inspire you as students, and as students of one of the leading institutions, one of the places that is the highest probability of making impact in the future of Indonesia, in the future of the world, to use your technical skills to solve real world problems. And I fully appreciate this opportunity that I've been given to liaise with the real world and share real world situations with you. And I appreciate the effort that has brought us here today. I want to also inspire students to join our mission to work at Bukit Vista to help us also accomplish our mission as well. So the format of this will be pretty simple, just 4 stages. I'll go through the introductions. I'll talk a little bit about our business model, and then our progression to data science from a simple business to a more sophisticated data-driven business, and also some of the problems we solved and the problems that we would like to solve. So very easy, simple format. This is a little bit about me. I think everyone already saw that profile already. So basically, I am the CEO, co-founder of Bukit Vista. I am an engineer, which I'm very proud to say. I'm always an engineer, even though now I do very little engineering. But I think that was something that first 22 years of my life, I'd always been growing up with math, with a keen understanding of how to think systematically, and I love solving problems. So that part is baked into my DNA. I did work at Airbnb and previously at Alma and a few other jobs. And I went to graduate school. So I was thinking about it at the time, but I realized that working in a good startup was actually better for me than going to graduate school. I learned exactly what I needed to learn to be able to run my own company, to be able to understand how the future was going to happen. So the timing was actually really perfect. It was in 2012, time when I think the word was so mo low, right? It was social mo local. This idea was really becoming very very trending about using apps and social media to get things done, and it was changing the world incredibly fast. I think now it's so changed that most people don't even see the difference anymore. But at that time, it was a very exciting time, and I joined Airbnb, which was a very very exciting company, and it still is a very exciting company that had a lot of very you could see the future when you were working there. So that was very exciting. I also happened to work at Aman Resorts, and Aman is an Indonesian company deeply rooted in hospitality. It was started by Adrian Zeka. He started his first resort actually in Thailand, followed by 3 resorts, I think 4 in Indonesia. There's Aman, 3 here in Bali, and 1 in Pulau Moyo. Oh, there's 5, and 1 in Jogja. So Aman is a very, very beautiful brand, and I extremely pay a lot of respect to it because of its deep commitment to hospitality. It is expensive. They do charge something on the order of $1,000 a night to stay in one of their resorts, but I think their culture of hospitality is completely genuine and also completely authentic, and they have very appreciative clientele that understands that. So it was also an honor and a privilege to be able to work at Aman as well. As a fun fact, I don't know if anybody has been watching Bollywood movies recently, but I did actually appear in a Bollywood movie once upon a time with Hrithik Roshan and Aishwarya Rai. These are one of the 2 main Bollywood actors and actresses. And if you guys can find me, I'm this guy right over here, right? I'm wearing these red shorts. I was an extra on a movie set once upon a time. So that's my fun fact. Okay, let me go into a little bit more about this company that I founded and that's been growing over the past 8 years. So Bukit Vista. So what do we do? What's the purpose of our company? We are a hospitality company. So our purpose is to inspire delight. We want to innovate on hospitality, but we want these innovations to positively transform. We want them to positively transform our guests, our partners, and employees. And that's part of the reason why I'm here today. We do a lot of university outreach because we believe that through these discussions, through these presentations, we can positively transform people. Many of our interns, many of the people that come and work at Bukit Vista, they experience a reality gap when they first enter the real world. They see their skills. And Lilith, for example, Lilith, who was the person who invited me to this conference, and she's leading our business intelligence team at the moment. She had many questions and had many learnings, and she had many growths in the process of going from school to actually going here to work in the real world. And I believe this part has been enormously impactful, and this is good because once we see that we can transform people, then these people can go and they can transform more people as well, and that is always to me an inspiration. So that's our mission. That's what we aim to do. This is what we look like. So for people that have used Bukit Vista services, what we do is manage properties. We are essentially like software. So people build homes, and they build homes in beautiful locations like in Ubud, like on the beach here in Bingen. They build tree houses. They build bamboo houses up in Abia Samal. They build homes that they want to welcome visitors in. So they employ Bukit Vista to manage and to optimize the performance of their properties. And this is just like a selection of some of our properties, and these is a selection of some more of our properties. So we do have the privilege and we're lucky to be in Bali, and we have very beautiful locations on the cliff front. We operate housing estates that are in beautiful cliff sides, resorts with private beaches, simple guest houses, private villas. We have also properties in Nusa Penida, Nusa Lembongan, and up in Ubud. So for every type of experience, whether it's in the mountain or on the beach, Bukit Vista has something for everyone. Currently, the size of our portfolio is about 150 unique properties. So that's us. So what is it that we exactly do? And one of the best ways I can describe it is I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story about how we actually positively transform people. And this will be a story about one of our partners. Meet Pat Yudi. So this is Pat Yudi. And Pat Yudi worked in oil and gas industry. So he saved up some money. He built himself a new villa. He called it Villa Despacito after the song. So he has his property and he wants to have it as an investment. So he wants to see ROI, return on investment. Now he's worked primarily in oil and gas. And by a miracle, he's actually learned some architectural skills and he designed his own place. The property is finished now and he wants to open it and start making some rentals. But he's got a problem. And this is the problem that he faces. Pat Yudi is coming onto a marketplace where there's hundreds of other competing properties. There's a lot of good villas in Bali. And if you take a look at Google Maps, you can kind of see the density of what Pat Yudi is facing. Pat Yudi has no experience in management and he has no team. And he has no real budget to go on and spend to hire an entire team of people to run his property. And the other problem, and it's fairly big, is his property is small. It's just a single unit. So it's kind of hard to find quality managers that will be willing to manage a single unit. So that's Pat Yudi's dilemma. What can he do? This is where we come in as a solution provider. So what solution we provide? We manage Pat Yudi's villa. We make sure that he gets a high ranking on the top of leading distribution platforms. And these are called OTAs, online travel agents, like Airbnb, like Booking.com, like Traveloka. So we use our skills in data, in business, in being able to provide hospitality to guests so that Pat Yudi gets a leading position and he gets continuous guests. We hire and bring on board smart people with lots of experience. We innovate on hospitality so that Pat Yudi doesn't need to think about how to do these things. Pat Yudi doesn't need to pay fixed costs now for a team, so he can just kind of relax and know that he only pays when there's a booking. So we work on a commission model. And that is a great solution because now Pat Yudi, instead of actually paying for a management team, pays for management as a service. So this can be extended to many different people. This can be extended to thousands of unique owners. Owners now don't need to hire their own teams. We keep the team of smart people that deliver amazing hospitality experiences, and the owners only pay a commission on each booking. This is pretty much how a lot of internet companies work. This is called SaaS, software as a service. We call it management as a service. When we use a platform like Amazon Web Services, when we use a platform like, Google Drive, we don't need to buy servers. We don't need to buy hardware. We don't need to have network engineers figure out what to do. We don't need to debug bugs. We just pay for the service, and essentially we just pay a monthly fee. Similarly, this concept has not really been brought to the hospitality industry, and that's what we think makes Bukit Vista unique in our approach to hospitality. Okay, so that's a little bit about Bukit Vista from the side of a partner. That's what the partner value sees. But let's have another story. Let's talk about data science. Let's talk about why data science is necessary. Let's talk about when is data science necessary. Let's talk about what is the difference between data science and data analysis. So I'll tell you the story of basically our company and how we evolved into becoming more data proficient. So the big challenge here is how do you actually apply data science to hospitality? And that goes back to what I said originally at the very beginning of our discussion. So data science ultimately goal, and that goal is to simply automate more things. You're in a condition where you want to be able to delegate to machines to make decisions for you. You want machines to help you with responding to guests. You want machines to help you with planning the prices. Maybe you want machines to help you create your marketing strategy. So in these terms, it is probably one of the hardest industries to get the data science and the industry to cooperate, because hospitality is so much about the human touch. It's so much about meeting people. When you meet with somebody, when you shake their hand, when you have dinner with them, when you enjoy time together, it's quite different than if you're, let's just say, chatting online, or if you're just sending an email to somebody, or even maybe just doing a webinar. There is an aspect of hospitality that's deeply ingrained to like a tribal experience, like almost like a primitive caveman experience. We're all sitting around a campfire, sharing like stories, and we're sharing this gazelle, and we're eating the meat off of it, right? That's like, kind of like the primal instinct of hospitality. So being able to pair that with data science is one of our biggest challenges, and I'll talk more about that as we go. Okay, so let's start with the simple accommodation business. So we start a business, we rent rooms, we rent guest houses, we rent villas, we rent these to a global audience of travelers. So what do we actually do? Well, we do very simple things. We help guests book our rooms. So we just, we answer their inquiries. We adjust the prices so that we account for seasonality, and maybe we set the prices once a year and we say, okay, that's good. That way people will be able to correctly book the properties, and we'll be able to correctly price the properties. And our properties are always occupied. There's good occupancy rates, good utilization. And we listen to customer feedback, right? We listen using our ears. We listen reading text messages. We listen opening our emails. So that's it. That's essentially the core processes that we operate in. So we do this for a while, and we realize that this is people. People are going to be doing the work. People are going to be adjusting the prices. People are going to be answering guests' emails. They're going to be talking with guests. They're going to be texting and engaging with guests all along the way. So this is, people are going to be listening to guests. This is all people work. And this is good in a way, right? This is good because this is what hospitality is about. It's about people kind of engaging with other people. But it's not efficient. It's not efficient because you need a lot of people to serve a lot of people, right? Bukit Vista, since the beginning of its history, we've received on the order of 100,000 guests so far. So you can imagine how busy that must be if you're working here. You got to put in a lot of your weekends. You got to put in a lot of your holidays. You do all these things in order to serve your guests, because your guests, well, they always come on the weekends. They always come on the holidays. So it makes it rather challenging to sort of have a normal life when you're in a company that's growing and you're dealing with more people work. So basically, your tools are very limited. Your tools are very simple. Your tools are basically Gmail and email, right? And you're using this to do guest operations. And that's where you begin. And that's okay. That's fine. That has a high kind of, that's the way that most hospitality companies work. Moving on, over time, you start thinking about growth. You're getting more and more visitors. You're able to, you're able to get more efficiency. So you think about basic optimization. So you think about this idea of conversion. Where does a guest actually begin their journey? Well, they begin their journey by maybe knowing about your brand somewhere. They see, oh, Bukit Vista. Okay, great. How do I turn that to inquiry? How do I get that person who knows about the brand to think more about talking to us, about making a booking, about using our services? Then how do we turn that person who's thinking about using our service, who's considering our services, into an actual guest? How do we turn that guest into somebody who enjoys the process and would advocate our brand, tell other people, hey, look, Bukit Vista is awesome. And then how do we then get loyalty from that guest so that they keep on working with us? We're a two-sided market. So we also work with partners as well. So this process is the same on the partner side and also on the guest side. So we think a lot about conversion. We think about how to make this process more efficient. Now, Lilith is on our team right now. She comes from industrial engineering. And this is very much an industrial engineering process. It's thinking about the process of how, it's a marketing process. How does somebody discover you to how do they become a loyal advocate and a great customer? So each stage, there is a conversion process. So we start thinking about that as a business. We start thinking about forecasting as a business. We start thinking about, can I predict the price of the future so that I don't necessarily just set the price for my rooms once a year based on seasonality that I saw last year? Can I actually set the price now every day or every week or a little bit quicker so I can predict the future now? So that would allow me to sell my rooms at the best price, make more money, and also it would be convenient for my guests because they would see options that make sense for their budgets. And last, can I actually learn more from my guests by reading their reviews, by understanding what they're doing? So I'm thinking about this more. I'm thinking about, as a leader of a business, how to actually frame this in a way to make it more optimized. So I move on to the next level. I start thinking about how data analytics work, right? So I started thinking about how I'm going to train or become a data analyst. And still, people are making the decisions. But we want to make decisions based on good data. So what do we start into? We start using Excel. We start putting everything in big spreadsheets, and we start counting, and we start like looking at the numbers, seeing if the numbers are making sense. And this is a data analyst job. And this is available in more sophisticated hospitality companies, maybe a company that has multiple chains, multiple locations. They start thinking about how to gain efficiencies, how to gain these conversions, how to forecast, and they're using tools like Excel. Maybe they're using a calculator. They're using like still very manual ways to actually determine what to do. So that's good. And eventually, you start approaching a different, you reach the next milestone. And the next milestone is where you have semi-automation, which means that not so much more that you're using people, but you're going to kind of be using software now. You're going to be using more sophisticated software. You're going to be using software that helps you understand your conversions better. You're going to be using software that helps understand your forecasting better. And you're going to be using software to like help reduce the number of repetitive tasks. And the reason why this is important, the reason why you might want to do it, is for two things. One, you want to reduce the, you want to keep your processes consistent. Now, when you have many different people in many different stages of, let's say, understanding your company, you're growing your company, you have people who've been there for 2 years and they understand everything. You have people who've been there for maybe 1 year and they understand a little bit, maybe not as much as the people who've been there for a longer time. And then you have people who have been here for 2 months, and maybe you have people who've been here for 2 minutes. So everybody understands something about the company in a different way. So how do you make it more consistent about how to share a common context, how to share a common approach, so that your guests, your partners don't get a different type of service each time that you engage with them? So you need some way to tie it all together, and the software starts becoming important. You start buying software programs like you buy HR tools, you buy business intelligence tools, you buy these things so that you can semi-automate the process. So you don't need to essentially do it manually each time. This becomes where most companies eventually get to. You have a semi-autonomous process and you're using a lot of software tools to get you there. So what does that actually look like? It looks like this. People are still making the decisions, but it's the people who actually work in business intelligence are making the decisions. That is actually the team that Lilith, who's graduated from ITB, she leads this particular group. So we now are looking, using software, using better tools to understand what the processes are happening inside our company. We're using these to understand what's happening better with our guests, but very much so, we're still using people to make these decisions. And that's kind of like the thing. We have a beautiful tool at Bukit Vista that we use a lot for business intelligence. It's called Tableau. I don't know, maybe you guys have heard of it before, but it's great. It basically takes all the data that we've been collecting from all the different sources where we can collect data. We collect data from our emails, we collect data from guest records, we collect data from partner records. We compile this all onto a single database. Then we go into this database and we create tables, visualizations, graphs, whatever we need. It's very simple. It's just a pivot table. It's just comparing one data metric with another data metric, usually something against time. We can see how we're doing as a company. We can see how much growth we're experiencing as a company. We can see how many bookings we're getting every day. We can see our weekly sales. We can see what the price of properties being sold in the next month. We can create scatter plots, bar graphs, pie charts. We can create all this great visualization so that we as business intelligence can make better decisions about how to chart the course of our company. Okay, so this is kind of getting to the next stage, right? Which is the stage I want to talk about next. Eventually you get to a stage where you say, you know what? Let's remove the person aspect of making decisions altogether. Let's just have full automation happen. So this is where essentially now CPUs replace brains and where you have machine learning, data science territory. So now instead of actually asking people to find ways to improve your conversion rate and find out how to answer a guest inquiry better, you are asking machines now to do that job. Instead of asking people to then forecast what is going to happen next month, what is the best price for my property, you're delegating it to machines and learning models to figure that out. And instead of actually having people do repetitive tasks, now you are delegating it to machines to do this. So if you think of a simple analogy, if you think of like Facebook, right? Maybe not Facebook, like Instagram. Before there was Instagram, there were people called, I worked on one of these teams before. They're called editors. And so an editor would think about how to arrange the layout of a magazine or a newspaper or whatever it might be. So editors would think about, okay, what article do we put on the headline? What do we put next over on the sidebar? What do we put everywhere? So that was a very human job. The editor would decide where to put certain articles based on, sometimes it was based on advertising money, sometimes it was based on something else. But Facebook and Instagram, they don't employ layout editors at all. The layout and the sequencing is done algorithmically, is done through machine learning, is done by observing your behavior and then determining what piece of content is most likely to keep you engaged on that platform for more amount of time so that they can serve you another ad. So this is an example of how we go from partial automation to full automation. And this is where it gets pretty exciting. So now, what people do? So people write code, people write machine learning models, people create the context so that machines can learn and make the decisions for themselves. And this, to me, took me a really long time to understand. And this is very common. When you first approach data science, you might be asking, okay, what is it used for? Why is it different than data analysis? What is essentially the core difference between data science and data everything else? Data is important, but what is data science? Data science is different from any other sort of data analytics and such because fundamentally, data science is about getting machines to make better decisions for themselves. Data analytics, data studies, these disciplines traditionally are to allow humans to make better decisions. So that's the key difference. How do we actually create a way to let machines make better decisions? Okay, so what does that actually look like? Most of the time, you're probably going to be in some editing program, maybe using Python or some other scripting language to create scripts and programs that actually exercise machine learning models. So now you've moved from essentially this idea of tools to creating things, to creating, I guess, the products that go out and do the work for you. You're creating automatons that actually do the work. So your tools have changed and your focus has changed at this point when you're in data science. Okay, hopefully that makes good sense, and that's the story that I would like to say. But when you really think about it, I have to go back to the beginning again. And this is where the challenge is in applying data science to hospitality. Now that you've been able to automate your conversion, so now you have machines start talking to your guests, right? You'll have machines start responding to reviews to your guests. You have machines start thinking about what patterns to create for what type of season to charge a guest a certain amount of money. You really need to start asking yourself this question. Do all these optimizations actually improve the lives of your guests and the lives of your partners? And you might find in some cases they do, and in some cases they don't. Sometimes what you've done is you've just made your own life easier without really thinking about the guest experience or the partner experience. And I think this is always the tension in hospitality about how to actually what percentage do we actually retain for, let's say, the human touch, and what percentage we want to automate and let the data take care of. So I think in a lot of customer service industries, this is a interesting balance point of what people will get used to. One part is things are changing, of course. I think that younger people now are definitely more comfortable speaking with chatbots and engaging with AI. I mean, we all engage with AI, whether consciously or unconsciously anyhow. But there is an aspect that is surprisingly unbeatable about actually getting a competent sort of person around it. So there is this is kind of like the underlying data dilemma. Let's talk about some problems that we've solved using data science. Now, we've solved a lot of problems using data analytics, but what are some of the things that we've essentially delegated to machines now? So one of the things that we've been successful with is we need to understand our company's revenue forecast. We need to know where we're going to go for the beginning of the month so that we can budget properly. So before we would estimate using hours of human time, me, Lilith, other people on the BI team would get together, we'd look at the statistics, we'd use business intelligence to find out how to actually predict our future revenue. Well, thankfully, at this point, we've found a machine learning way to do that. So now we're happy to say that we can essentially spend zero time estimating future revenue because the data science is taking care of that for us. So that is one thing that we've been able to successfully achieve using data science, a company-wide revenue forecast. We also have been able to understand more about our customers in aggregate, meaning all 100,000 of them, right? Since the beginning of time, or since the beginning of Bukit Vista. So we've been able to use sentiment analysis, and we essentially send in our reviews. Our reviews then get analyzed, and the analysis is remarkably accurate, actually. So we're able to figure out, are most of our guests actually happy based on their written reviews? This is great because nobody has time to read all the reviews that come in every single day from our guests. And it's overwhelming to be able to track that. But we need to be able to innovate our hospitality based on guest feedback. So how do we do it? If we listen to one guest at a time, we might make a system change based on a small sample set, and that can't be very good. If we don't understand how they aggregate things, we can't make systemic changes either. So the best solution is to use a data science solution. We send the reviews over, they get analyzed, and we get overall scores back about how our guests are doing. And this is enormously helpful. And this is another thing that we've been able to automate. The other thing that's part of data science is data infrastructure. Data infrastructure is the building block to getting data science to work. If you're going to have data science, you have to find a way to automate the data collection, to be able to kind of vacuum up all this information that your guests are leaving behind, that your partners are leaving behind. Because, as Ibu Anggita said, this is gold. This is really very valuable. So how do you collect this information? Well, you need parsers. You need Integromat. You need these ways of essentially moving this data through, tokenizing it, and collecting it and putting it on databases, and then cleaning the data up so that you don't have issues like different time zones being tagged to different times and having this chaotic where you don't understand any insight from your data. So we do have that now. So we have data infrastructure, and we're able to aggregate our hospitality metrics, report, and visualize that. So that's the problems that we solved so far. But that's not it. We're ambitious. We want to do more at Bukit Vista. We want to solve more problems. We want to really think about this. Inquiries. We receive thousands of inquiries, but we only convert maybe hundreds of them at best. Is there any way that we can optimize that so that we can convert more inquiries, so that we can convert 1,000 inquiries when we get 1,000 inquiries, and maintain guest satisfaction and still sound like a human? So we're investigating this topic at the moment using NLP, natural language processing. So this is a problem that we're trying to solve, and we're trying to create a hybrid approach. So probably look like data-assisted, AI-assisted suggestions to help human operators answer the inquiries for guests, so that we can apply a human operator who maybe doesn't have enormous amount of knowledge about the product, maybe not an enormous amount of skill in negotiating, but we have the AI assist the human operator so that they can come up with their own suggestions. We want to actually improve confidence with our partners. We want them to trust us. And part of the way we do that is we need free control over the pricing so that we can capture opportunities in the market. But in order to get free control on the pricing, we need to be able to establish a benchmark, a baseline for what we can do in terms of how we operate with a partner. We do that through a revenue forecast. We come to our partner, like Pat Yudi, and we say, Pat Yudi, we will adjust the pricing for you this month, but we target to make about $3,000 this month. Now, currently, we still do a lot of this manually. We do a lot of this through calculations, through using tables, through looking at graphs, but we want to figure out, is there a way to do this in an automated way? We can do it at the company level. We can do it for Bukit Vista because we have 150 data points, but can we do it for one specific property? That's a challenge, and that's a challenge that we want to open up and also solve. Of course, when we have this ability, we have this trust now from our partners that give us the opportunity to change prices. We want to be able to use it. We want to be able to create high frequency pricing predictions so that we can change prices not just every month, not just every week, but maybe every day or even every hour based on the condition. What you start seeing is it's sort of like a machine state. It's like a state machine. Every decision you make changes the future a little bit for the way that you're going to perform in the future. So if you're able to see it that way, the state machine, then each jump you make changes a little bit your ranking, that changes the next price that you need to make, and so on and so forth, which makes it pretty exciting, I think. So that's another problem that we want to solve, we want to implement. And one of the final things is we do advertising. We do advertising through Google AdWords, we do advertising through social media spend, and we want to automate this process, make it a little bit more efficient. So we're thinking about ways of actually doing that too as well. These are all challenges, and we need smart people to help us address these challenges. And these are, I think, worthwhile problems that help transform people at the end of the day. So these are some of the list of things that we would like to solve with data science. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is a little bit new. So I'm going to take you behind the scenes, and I'm going to show you kind of like how we actually work at Bukit Vista. Now, if you're curious yourself and you want to follow us, we have a YouTube channel, 2 YouTube channels where we essentially show you what we do on a day-to-day basis. But I'd like to stop the presentation for a moment. I'd like to share my screen and kind of give you guys all a peek behind at how we do our business. So I'm going to stop the share, and then I will now share a different screen. I'll share this screen. Okay. Now, there's not too much to actually see in terms of data science because data science works invisibly. It's code, right? So what you actually just end up seeing is sort of like the end result. But what I can show you right now is I can show you what business intelligence looks like. This is Tableau. This is what I had just spoken about. This is our Tableau showing a few stats here. What you see here on this bar graph at the top with the tiny little squares, this is what we call booking pace. This shows us how many bookings we're taking every day. So this isn't very good at the, oh, this is not bad, but this isn't great. What's great is probably how we were doing maybe about, let's go back 330 days ago, right? When Bukit Vista was doing much better before COVID hit. So if we look at like what the booking pace was almost a year ago, you'll see different figures. Oops, okay, wait for this to load. Okay, just waiting for a second for that to load up. Oh, I think I might actually have to, okay. What happened there? Okay, I think I left it idle for a little bit too long. Let me try it now. Live demos, always kind of nervous when I do a live demo. All right, let's see. Okay, there we go. So now I've zoomed out and I can look back in time at my booking pace from 330 days ago, almost a year ago. So we can see what's happening here. These are the good days of Bukit Vista. These are the days when we are doing 100 bookings a day, up to 115 bookings a day. In February, which was a low season. In February, we had forecasted we would do up to 200 bookings by now a day. But then, things kind of got bad. And you can see what bad actually looks like on a graph perspective. We went from 110 to 80 to 50 to 70, and we had this sharp decline. But what's really kind of cool about doing the data analytics is you can see exactly what day did things really go bad. And we can say, definitely, we reached kind of like a new normal around March 21st. That was the day when all enthusiasm for travel to Bali stopped. And we saw a gigantic decline in the number of bookings. And so since that time, as you can see, we've been kind of struggling. We've been trying to get up, down, up, down, up, down. But now we're over here. We can see what our weekly sales are in terms of how much weekly sales we're able to produce. And this keeps our revenue projections on track and allows us to understand what's going on. We can look into the next 6 months and see how our revenue is doing over on this side too as well. We can track other metrics that are interesting for us. So we can use different line graphs to see what the year-on-year growth has been for the company. So the blue line that you see at the very bottom, the x-axis indicates the month of the year. The y-axis indicates the growth. So in 2016, we were on the light blue line down here across the year. In 2017, we moved up. 2018, we moved up. 2019 was very good. We got up to 45% growth year on year, which is incredible in August. And this year we didn't. This year we dropped 94%. So COVID sort of interrupted our growth process there, but we're still surviving. And it's been a dramatic drop. It's been almost a 94% decrease since the previous year. So that allows us to kind of take a look at growth models. We can also see what's happening inside different teams. We can see the growth of our total number of properties here. This allows us to keep track of how many unique properties that we've developed. We can look inside and see what our efficiencies are in terms of the number of inquiries, but also, oh wow, I just took a look at this today. Apparently, more people are inquiring about properties this month now. So this is very good. And we can see what our conversion rates are here, showing here in the blue section of the bars and such. So all kinds of really cool stats and insights. I'll show you guys another one that I think is pretty cool, that I like a lot. This is where our guests are coming from. So we're able to track guest origin, and we can see that when the map loads up, this is North America over on this side. Oh wait, sorry, I lied. This is Europe over on this side. This is North America. This is Southeast Asia. This is India, South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand. So we can see a scattering of where our guests are actually coming from. And this is pretty amazing because a lot of our guests, even now, are still coming from Europe and America. It's not that they're actually traveling to Bali, it's that they're stuck in Bali and they originally came here about 6-7 months ago, and they're just continuing their extensions here on a month-to-month basis. So that part is pretty cool. That's a pretty cool graph, but we can also see scatter plots like this. This is a scatter plot that lets us see each day into the future and what are the rates that people are booking at into the future. So we can analyze basically which dates are empty. We can see here in November, there's not a lot of bookings, but in October, there's October 6th to 31st, there's a good density in bookings over on this side, which is good. And then we can see in November, there's not so much density of booking, and that's maybe not so good. And but we can see where the prices are on the scatter plot. So that's one way that we can use data analytics to understand things better. Now, when you start using data science, the funny thing is you still need to do data analytics. You still need to do data analytics because you still need inspiration for what to create. A data science algorithm is usually based on some context that humans have discovered. Maybe you've discovered that there's a certain correlation between the price and the seasonality, or between the price and the day, or maybe between the price and the nationality. You're going to have to actually see this through the analysis and then feed it into the learning model. The learning model generally won't absorb things unless you tell it what to absorb. So this is actually something that's still necessary even with data science being available, but it's actually pretty fun. You can actually quite lose yourself inside these, looking for trends and looking for insights. All right, so that's one tour behind the scenes at Bukit Vista. The other thing I'd like to bring you guys behind is actually a little bit more actually operate. So I'd like to introduce you to our business intelligence team. This is Trello. Trello is a project management tool that is supremely useful for organizing teams around projects. It has all these very good features and allows things to be very clear. Now, what we have here are two things, right? We have campaigns, and campaigns are the cards that you see here on this list, cross-chapter campaigns, right the way down here. Now, we've organized our campaigns by priority. So the highest priority campaign is up at the top, and then the lowest priority campaign is down here at the bottom. So we can as a team understand what we are prioritizing. And this is important because prioritization helps us get results done better. So within each campaign, there is a game. And a campaign is a game, and just like a basketball team or a baseball team or even a military unit, everybody on a team has a different responsibility. They have what is called an SLA. An SLA means a service level agreement. So what they agree to do is they agree to do a certain number of KPIs per week. So what's a KPI? A KPI is a key performance indicator. It's a way of understanding if achievement has been done. So let me bring you through sort of what is involved in a sales campaign, and I'll sort of show who's responsible for it at each point. So if I can direct everybody's attention to this particular list that says sales SLA, I'll bring you through the process of what it takes to create revenue for Bukit Vista. So the very first stage of revenue is you need to generate awareness. People are not going to give you revenue if they don't know who you are. So we have this person here. His name is Rizal. And so Rizal's job is just to bring traffic to Bukit Vista. His job is to think of how do I increase the amount of traffic that goes into each of the campaigns. That's it. That's his position. Once the traffic arrives, we have another person to think of engagement. This person's name is Gani. Gunung Gani's job is to think, how do I turn this traffic into engagement? How do I get people to book? How do I get people to inquire? How do I get people to comment? How do I get them to like? How do I get them to actually engage with the things that they're seeing? So that's his job. After they've engaged, we have the next person here, and her name is Nadine. Nadine's job is simply to take that engagement and turn it into a booking, a revenue source, right? That's what we call a conversion. And then once we book, the revenue doesn't actually arrive directly to Bukit Vista, right? It's just a promise that somebody will show up. That doesn't mean that they actually will show up, that they'll complete their stay. We get paid only after a guest leaves at the time of checkout. So at that point, we need to have a transaction. So Andre here works on a hospitality team, and his job is to make sure that essentially the guest has a successful checkout, that they do not cancel their reservation, that they do not shorten the reservation, and they essentially reach the end of their stay happy. Now, happy guests then go to the last stage, which is advocacy. And that goes, sorry, I'm jumping around here. Advocacy, and that then becomes Cynthia's job. Cynthia's job is then to essentially take the checked out guests and make sure that they write a beautiful review about Bukit Vista, and then restarting the process back up at the top to awareness. The review, once published, then brings new guests in, and the cycle repeats itself, which is quite beautiful in a way. So that's essentially how we work together as a team. So how does this actually look like? Well, we have a campaign. Currently, one of our biggest campaigns, one of the things that we get together to work on every day is Airbnb. So we work on Airbnb and we have a breakdown. So Rizal is working on the Airbnb, and his KPI is very simple. He's working on how many discounts have we applied every day? How many listings, how many properties have we applied a cleanliness protocol to? And what is the total number of page views that people are looking at our Airbnb profiles? Next person, their KPI, Gani, is the number of inquiries and the number of instant books. These are direct bookings that we get every month. That's his target, and he is in charge of making sure that we perform on those metrics. The next person is Nadine, and she's in charge of making sure that the inquiries we get converted. Next person is Andre. His KPI is the number of checked out guests per month. And the next person is Cynthia, and her KPI is the number of Airbnb reviews we get a month. Okay, so that's everyone's roles. That's everyone's numbers. and we work hard to achieve those numbers. So here are the results, and we can see what the results are. We can see that we've applied 78 discounts, and there are okay, wait, let me actually go up to the top here. Okay, so we can see sort of what we've been doing. We can see that there is essentially growth in the top funnel, which is good. That's indicated by the 11% growth. We can see that there's no change in the number of cleanliness protocol that we've applied. We can see that our page views have gone up, so this is good. We can see that our inquiries have gone down. Our inquiries converted have gone down. Our instant books have gone down. Our inquiries have gone down. Our inquiries converted went up just a little bit. Inquiries converted here just went up a little bit. Checkouts went down. Checkouts went down, and the reviews went up. So this is essentially looking at it across the entire campaign in a very, I guess, technical format. And from this, we can see how we're doing as a team together. So this is one campaign, and we have also many other campaigns too as well. We have campaigns in business intelligence, but we also have campaigns in marketing. So at the same time that we're trying to acquire guests and move guests' journeys into revenue, into guest satisfaction, we're also trying to acquire partnerships. So similarly, this campaign is a marketing campaign that we're currently doing to acquire partnerships. So there's a contact list, there's the number of responses, the number of meetings, and the number of deals. And that's essentially how we flow through different campaigns across different departments, or as at Bukit Vista, we call them different chapters. Okay, hopefully that's pretty interesting. And one of the other things that we do on a week-to-week basis is that we get together and we have discussions. So not everything can be resolved just by working alone. So we get together and we think about how do we actually discuss about things that are going to be relevant. So we get together discussions, and a little bit behind the scenes, we have a certain discussion format that I think is pretty interesting. So how do we kind of manage things? Well, these are just reminders at the top for each particular department, what our strategy is. So one of the strategies that we talk about constantly in marketing is that marketing is actually very simple. It's just 4 things. You need to have the right audience. You need to address the right audience with the right message, get to them at the right time, and find the right channel that they want to do. So a lot of marketing is actually more data science. It's really finding what is the correct combination of audience, messaging, timing, and channel that creates your growth. The leadership side of it is similar. Actually, no, it's not similar, but it's just to kind of remind ourselves. We need to discover what our problems are, what the opportunities are. If we don't discover well, then we won't work well. But after we discover, and we find a lot of discoveries, we need to prioritize. We know that we only have a limited amount of time, skill, and energy to work on our problems, or on our opportunities. So we need to prioritize next what to do. After that, and only after that, should we actually problem solve. A lot of times I've realized engineers like myself, we like to just go right into problem solving at the very beginning. But it's not a good idea. It's not a good idea because, as I've learned, you might not be solving the right problem. You might be solving a problem that's interesting for you, but it might not actually have any impact or any long-term benefit. So make sure you discover, make sure that you prioritize the problem. And this is where getting together with your team for discussions becomes very, very important. And then only after you've solved the problem should you actually execute. And that makes sure that we have a good leadership strategy. Okay, so that's sort of the theme of what we do to lead ourselves, but how do we actually do it? Well, we have discussions. So the work is very simple. Anybody can bring up a particular discussion topic. I myself am very active in marketing because I like to think about marketing. So I bring up discussion topics. Everybody then comes in to discuss it right here. So here we're talking about what kind of messaging to use to advertise to gain new property partners. So we're experimenting on Facebook to try different combinations of messages, background ad. We have a different strategy. And so we're having a discussion, and eventually after discussion finishes, we will reach a conclusion, and we'll write this conclusion down. So this is one of the ways that we manage here at Bukit Vista our culture and our communication strategy. And this is so important these days because we are all working remotely. We're all working in different rooms and different groups in different parts of the country. And without sort of a fabric to tie everything together, it becomes incredibly challenging to share the same context. Maybe you have a conversation with somebody, nobody else knew about it, right? And then all of a sudden we're moving in a different direction. So by writing it down, by having asynchronous communication culture, what we're doing is literally to keep everybody on the same page, so that maybe I wasn't there at the meeting, but I can read and see and understand what's happening. Maybe I just joined the company and I can still go back, I can read, I can absorb the context, and I can know what's happening. So that's another aspect of something that we do that's behind the scenes. One last thing I'd like to show you guys is this, and this is part of our, it's kind of part of our data, but also part of our documentation communication strategy. We get a lot of new people here every month, and a lot of them are beginning as interns. So as a practice, we record all of our meetings. Every single meeting that happens at Bukit Vista, we record, and we share through our YouTube channel. We share through our YouTube channel, and what this helps is that essentially any new person at Bukit Vista is able to rapidly understand what's happening by just looking back on previous meetings that that we've had. And yeah, that's a little tour kind of like behind the scenes across our data stack and across our I guess our project management ability and across our communication stack. Okay, after that, I'll go back to the presentation and I'll finish up over there. Okay, so hopefully everyone enjoyed that. That was what it looks like behind the scenes here at Bukit Vista. So I'll share a little bit more about employee life and what we do ultimately. So recently we've moved into remote working culture, and just like what we're doing now, we're doing remote webinar. We've thought, how do we actually get engagements with people who are able to advise us, able to mentor us? So we started a program. We call it Startup Masterclass. We reach out to hundreds of industry experts. We've had talks with the leading data scientists in the world. This is Ritesh. Ritesh works on the Uber data infrastructure team, and his job is to save Uber millions of dollars on data infrastructure costs by creating efficiencies and caching and some other interesting strategies to reduce their data load. We've also had talks with Slavik Smile. He's a leading data scientist who won the M3 or M4 forecasting competition. So this is a program that we currently offer at Bukit Vista. We reach out to really industry experts at LinkedIn, Airbnb, WeWork, on university, and we bring them in to counsel us and to mentor us. We even have a spot on our website where we feature some of the talks. So that's a little bit about the employee life. We do this, which is part of our BVE Talk program. We want to transform students to be more adept in the real world. So we constantly give university webinars, and we bring in experts sometimes to support our webinars. We've done it at Unpad, UGM many times, at Erlanga, at UI, at SMU, at ITB now. And so this is one of our ongoing programs that is also pretty interesting. Oftentimes we'll invite somebody who is actually working at Bukit Vista to also present and give a talk about what they're doing. Sometimes it's one of our interns will actually talk about a project they've worked on. So this is pretty cool. We have an international product team. We're able to recruit all over the world in Hong Kong and India and Romania to bring people to create our software and our data science products too as well. And that's been very enjoyable because we can see things from different perspectives and we can gain new insights and new strategies that perhaps we weren't able to see when we were when we had a more uniform talent pool. So this part is pretty cool. And we also have remote internships, and that's part of what I'm offering today too as well. We've done internship programs with SMU, with UGM, UI, and NTU, and more universities on the way too as well. So the internships are very fulfilling for our candidates. They learn a lot. They get to work on real projects, on real problems. And a lot of their work can be actually applied in production, which is always very exciting to see when you see that something you thought about actually gets used and start serving guests, our partners, or sometimes other employees too as well. That's pretty cool. So anyways, I just wanted to kind of announce that we are opening for remote internships, and everyone here is definitely welcome to apply. So what do we actually do? Most of the data in science internships are there to solve the problems that I stated earlier. So is there a way that we could optimize brand awareness and optimize our digital marketing? Finding ways of using NLP and the engagement software. Oh, yes.
5 minutes left for the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the announcement. Almost done here. Okay. For our for the other part of automating not automating, but improving and optimizing our hospitality process, we need to understand how people and machines can work together. So this is also a data science challenge as well, to work on guest relations and reservations. Business intelligence, as always, of course, to think about how to optimize the revenue and think about how to optimize the sales process of the company so that we can help everyone here survive. And we're also looking for human resource candidates that can think about how to actually bring the most out of people who work here and how we can develop better relationships. Not sure that's a data science issue, but if you can imagine that you can connect it, well, even better. And finally, a UI UX designer, thinking about the process by which we engage with the tools that we've created and streamlining that process. Okay, that's pretty much it. I have one last thing I'd like to request with my time left, which is a survey. What I'm gonna do is I'll go ahead and share the link to the survey in the chat. And what I would like to ask for is for everybody just to give me some feedback of how this talk went. I don't know actually how I can write into the chat group. I don't see the button there. Let's see, where's the chat function? Okay. Sorry about this. Okay. I guess we'll have to just have everybody just write it down for the moment. So if you could, please just take the survey by typing in the bit.ly link on your device. Here it's bit.ly/BV Seminar 2020. And just take a minute and tell me how this went so that I get some feedback for it. And hopefully if it's no good, then I can definitely improve and make it a better presentation in the future. Okay, I'll stop talking for a second to just give everyone a second there. And
I also already write the link on the chat box
in
Zoom.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Just click the link. Yeah,
okay, perfect.
So while the students fill out the form in the evaluation forms, I checked the Slido. There are 14 questions.
Oh wow! Okay, that'll be very fun. Okay,
so,
good.
Let's start the Q&A session then.
Absolutely, sure. Oh, one last thing. I'd just like to invite everybody. This is perfect timing, actually. Perfect timing. We have BVE Talk, like I just spoke about. This is number 6, and we will be conducting this on October 15th. I know that it wasn't a great time for ITB because you guys have midterms. I had been speaking with the DSC lead core team role, Jesselyn, about this, but I just want to kind of announce it. We have speakers coming from real data scientists, right? Coming from Tokopedia, from Google, from Bukalapak, and from Gojek, and they will be speaking about their knowledge about data science, which is, if you have any questions that you're really curious about, this is a far more expert than I am about it. Vidi, who's one of our data scientists here at Bukit Vista, will be moderating, and I'll be just there to show my face and introduce. Yeah. So yeah, I just want to announce that before, and if you want to register, there's another bit.ly link over there, but after you've given my survey. Yeah. Okay. I'll just leave it here for now. Yeah, I'm ready for questions. Yeah, please ask away.
Okay, so let's start for the first question. Is the questions that get the most upvote from the students. It's kind of it's the first about many of our students wondered I think BV business model is quite similar to Airbnb, and Airbnb lost 80% of its business during the first month of pandemic. What's BV strategy to sustain?
Now that's a great question. That's a beautiful question. So you're kind of okay. So just to distinguish, what is the difference between Bukit Vista and Airbnb? So Airbnb is a platform at the end of the day. What we do is we optimize performance on the platform. So you guys probably know about YouTube and Instagram. There are certain people on YouTube and Instagram who get a lot of attention. I guess we call them influencers, right? So fundamentally, the platform, the bigger it gets, the our opportunity actually becomes. Just like the idea of search engine optimization became more crucial and established when Google became the default way that people went to search for information on the internet. This idea of search engine optimization can also apply to something like Airbnb. So that's our business model. What we do is essentially we optimize performance on the particular platform. But great question. What do you do when the platform sinks, right? So this is where we go back to our mission, right? How do we inspire delight through hospitality innovations that positively transform guests, partners, and employees? So we've had to pivot. As you can see on the campaign card that I had previously, Airbnb has dropped quite a lot, and our overall business has dropped quite a lot. But this is where we started getting creative. We started getting more creative on using Facebook to start developing campaigns on that platform. We started analyzing a lot more detail about who our guests are and how to get them to extend. We started realizing that there were micro niches in Bali of people who were essentially stranded here. And these people were extending month to month. So our strategy became, how do we make sure we get a person to extend? And surprisingly, even when Airbnb has, let's say, dropped 80% of business, we still get a lot of inquiries that we are not able to convert into deals. There's still a lot of work that we can do within Airbnb to make the platform work even better. So reality is, at the moment, it's not Airbnb that's the problem. It's more fundamental. It's the airport is closed, right? So if the airport is closed, then that's even more of a fundamental issue. So I won't say that we have been thriving. As you guys could see from the numbers, it's been very tough. It's 95% less than it was last year. But the good news is that we are less negative this month than the previous month. And the previous month was less negative than the previous month. So we are actually getting out of the hole, so to speak. We're still in the hole, but we're not as deep in the hole as we could have been. So the way that we do it is we always look for opportunities across every platform now. We look for opportunities on Traveloka. We look for opportunities on Booking.com. We try to target more domestic travelers. We try to make ourselves and our brand more aware amongst the people who can still travel. And it's mostly travelers coming from Bandung, from Jakarta, from Surabaya, domestic travelers who are looking to kind of get out of the city, right? We don't expect things to actually be great for a while, not until the airport opens at least, right? That's not going to change until we see changes in that. But our current strategy is to survive. So we're looking for every avenue for where we can develop revenue. And we're even thinking a little bit more broadly now about what hospitality means. We're detecting opportunities in doing, let's say, land deals, in developing projects that could actually build revenue around the capital appreciation of land. And we're also looking into new ways. I think the key thing to remember is this, is the quality of your team that really matters. If you have a quality team, you can kind of move the team to a different industry without losing much, let's say, momentum, right? But if you don't have a quality team, then it's really hard to move the team outside of anything. So yeah, what we're focusing on now is improving the quality of the team, making that they are more general purpose, and cling on to whatever opportunity is out there at the moment. But that's a great question. That's a very, very survival-based question.
Okay, so how about it, Maneko? Is your question answered? Maneko?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jing.
Okay, then before we proceed to the next questions, Mr. Jing, I checked the link for the BE talk bit.ly/bvxdsc. It cannot be opened. So
Oh, okay.
maybe
All right.
there's some
Sorry.
um,
Okay.
misspelling on the link. Or
Let me just.
maybe any students can check whether they can open the link or not, because I check my when I open the link, it cannot be opened. Oh,
Okay. It should be to this page, which is the registration form. Let me just check it real quick.
so,
Bit.ly.
Mr. Jing, our student said that Aulia Ananda and Alia said it should be BV capital and BSC capital. So it's case sensitive. Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Nanda and Alia.
Thank you very much. Thank you for stating that. That's my mistake. I was using the auto completion. I think that's why it didn't show it for me. But yeah, thank you very much for debugging. Fail fast. Yeah.
Okay, then thank you once again, Nanda and Alia. And let's proceed to the second questions. It's from Aryo. It's a quite personal question. So, what moment made you choose to set up your own startup instead of maintaining high position in an established startup? And what's the reason behind the career pivot?
Okay, I'll be very transparent here. Thank you for that question. So I was working as essentially the manager of Indonesia for Airbnb, but truth be told, I got fired. I got fired because I was actually, I guess, to look back on it, I don't think I could ever actually probably work. If you're an entrepreneur, I think, right? If you're an entrepreneur, there's going to be things that about your personality that are, I guess, burning to surface, right? So this is the kind of first time I've said this in public, but basically Airbnb had to let me go. The reason was, the technical reason was because it was actually really dumb. I accidentally CC'd a bunch of our hosts on an open email. But the thing that I thought about later, and to answer your question, is that when you really think about who you are, there's going to be times that you want to get certain things done, right? And for me, it really relates to, do you have a vision? It really relates to that. Do you have a vision, and do you want to believe in that vision? Airbnb is an excellent place to work. I would say it's probably one of the most, I remember the day they let me go, and I told my boss, who I actually get along with these days, surprisingly now. I told my boss, no matter what, I'm still going to love doing what I do here. And he said, well, that's great, but it's not good enough for now, right? But he sent me away with these encouraging words. He said to me, Jing, remember the WhatsApp guys, right? So the WhatsApp guys, they were essentially never hired by Facebook or by Google or whatever, but they eventually got bought by Facebook for $19 billion, right? So I was like, okay, thank you for that. And so I think this would have happened anyway had I stayed at Airbnb. All the people that I originally went into Airbnb with that made Airbnb in 2012 so magical have moved on. Most of them have eventually stopped working there, right? So I've realized something, which is no matter how incredible the place that you're going to be working in is, if you work at a Gojek or a Traveloka or a Tokopedia, no matter how incredible it is, I think at some point you might start asking yourself, is this my vision, right? Is this the way that I see that the world should be? And if it's not, then you're going to have to make a decision, right? You're going to have to make a decision whether or not you're going to be essentially supporting somebody else's vision, which is fine. I think the majority, 99.9% of people support other people's vision. And I, of course, support other visions too. My company supports the vision of Indonesian tourism, of course, right? And other visions as well. But you're going to have to decide for yourself, I think, is this still the right place for me? Airbnb today is a very different company from when I first joined it. I talked to everybody about it. I still have hundreds of friends in Airbnb, and whenever I ask even executives at Airbnb to come and give talks at Bukit Vista, they would agree. But even they have moved on from the company. And I think the draw to start my own business was always there. I've always been an entrepreneur. I mean, I'm here in Indonesia I'm living the American dream in Indonesia, right? I came here with nothing, and now I have my own business, right? So that I think it is a very personal decision. I think there's only two ways to go in life, right? You can either really go up, and that can only happen either with the company you're currently in or outside. So if you can't move up in the company that you're in, then I guess, and it could be because, I don't know, maybe career isn't everything for everybody. You want to spend more time with your family, kids, whatever. But if you feel the ambition, if you feel the passion, the drive to sort of set out your own thing, then I think there's no more satisfying way to do it than to start your own business. You will never wake up in the middle of the night. You'll wake up, you'll maybe not get any sleep, right? Maybe you'll never sleep, but you'll never wake up in the middle of the night with midlife crisis, right? With wondering, I've been here for 10 years and have I really done anything useful? I think that is fundamentally my particular explanation. Had I had it my way, I probably would have liked to stay at Airbnb maybe for another 1 or 2 years more, so I could learn a little bit more. But that means Bukit Vista would be behind by 2 years now, and I don't know what that would mean either. So it's kind of like a little bit. I think Y Combinator, one of the leading startup incubators, he put it best. It's sort of like you jump off a cliff, and you build an airplane on the way, right, before it crashes. So that's what it feels like. I happen to enjoy that process a lot. I like being in the places where creation is happening, where sort of like, you're not just doing something that was done a year ago, that was done 10 years ago. You're the first person to do it. So that drive, I think, would have one way or the other just kind of kept me in an entrepreneurial state. And that's my best explanation for that question.
Okay, Mr. Jing, thank you very much for sharing. So I get very wise suggestions. If you cannot go up in your current company, maybe you can improve your career in other place. Okay, thank you for your suggestion. Next, also, if the previous questions taught us about your career in Airbnb, now it's Adrista Pramusakti has questions in the early career of your beginning early career. Like, despite having a degree in electrical engineering, why and how did you decide to work in hospitality industry since the start of your career?
Thank you for that question. That's a great question. I actually, it is kind of because my wife, actually. She's right here right now, actually. So, hey, babe, you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi, everyone.
Okay, so so I graduated. I think, okay, that's a great question. I think timing has everything to do with that question. So I graduated in 2002, 2003, and I had a degree in electrical engineering and computer science from Berkeley, which goes a long way in the Bay Area. And I was just disillusioned by this point because it was the dot-com crash. There weren't a lot of good jobs, and work, I think, was completely different from what it is now. Work, I think most young people expect work to be fun now. Work was work back then. It was still kind of like coming from the 80s, which was all about like kind of creating wealth and money. It wasn't so much experiential. So most of the industry that I found was actually sort of a downgrade from college. I felt like in college we were working on really interesting things, but when I got my first jobs, it was always so depressing. It was always, you're just working on this tiny little component that goes into this thing that goes into something else. So when you work at Intel, you don't work on, actually all the stories I heard from my friends were so depressing. One of my friends, Mark, he got a job at Intel in the Folsom factory, in the Folsom Design Center. So he told me that Intel creates 40 different prototypes for their next chip. So 40 different teams work on what the next Intel chip will be. 39 teams fail. So 39 teams work for years and their design doesn't actually make it. So I was like, wow, that sucks. That's like, that talk about not having impact in the world, right? So what I saw was I couldn't find meaning in necessarily the work, and it was a sad time too. There wasn't a lot of work to begin with. So what I did was I kind of became an entrepreneur, right? So I started thinking, what can I do to make money on the side? And I started a small business that sold it sold computer parts, and eventually we got rich selling furniture. So that was a weird pivot. But with that money, I went to travel. And when I traveled, I arrived in Indonesia, and I was totally inspired by Indonesia. Indonesia was like magical to me. I mean, you don't hear too much about Indonesia in America. It's sort of like, Indonesia, is that next to like Pakistan somewhere? Like most people don't have any idea where Indonesia is. So when I came here and I found out about like wayang kulit and Borobudur and Bali, this was absolutely inspirational to me. And just before I was about to leave, I go into an art shop. I meet my wife, and she seduces me, and I didn't have a choice. I just had to stay then. And when you stay in Bali, you look for an engineering job. It's like the person who fixes people's pools, or you fix a light bulb somewhere. So there's no like real engineering work here. And because I really wanted to be here, I had to change my job. So I started looking for work, and the first job I found was in a luxury villa company. So that job led to my next job, and before I knew it, I was in hospitality. It was kind of an industry that you need to work in if you want to live in Bali. But I always missed engineering. And it wasn't until Airbnb that I finally got a taste of engineering back again. So to answer your question again, I think this is how I live my purpose, right? If I were to work again in Bali, in a hospitality industry, I wouldn't have a chance to really talk about data science. Not too many hotels think about data science, right? I wouldn't have a chance to talk with engineers or work on engineering problems. So that's kind of how I ended up here. And yeah, it wasn't planned at all. It just sort of one coincidence led to another coincidence. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, so thanks for answering the previous questions. I would like to pick another question from Alia. It's upvoted by 15 people. So hospitality is often associated with effectiveness of the service rather than efficiency. How to balance those factors to give the best service you can deliver?
Wow, that is a really, really beautiful question. I think I'm always learning how to answer that how to address that problem better. So how to be effective rather than efficient. I think one of the things I've realized is this, that and there's Brian Chesky, the CEO of Airbnb, he once said that I learned it from my old boss just the other day. Create a place, types of animals, marketplace. Whales, dolphins, and tuna. Tuna but are in supply. For Vista, generally, we houses and guest rooms are also fairly cheap, right? They're around $20 to $30. These days, they're around $8 or $5. So guest houses are sort of our that's the minimal quality that we have. We've realized that in that most people they're not focused on their accomplishment. The experience to go off a vela or go and have sunset drinks at the lawn, or they're going to go hiking or trekking, or they're going to kind of keep their budget for that. So where we deliver value and where we become effective is our recommendations. That part we can semi-automate even. We can just create a list of recommendations. We can crowdsource previous guest trips to create great ideas of what future guests might like, and we can share that back. So we can almost create like a platform for recommending that and a service for doing that. So we're prioritizing how to be effective with the type of guest who wants that type of component from their host. That's what we do. Okay, the dolphin. Dolphins are more aspirational like properties. These are like villas, tree houses, the things that people would probably tell stories about when they go back home. I stayed in this beautiful villa in Bali. I had a private chef and a butler, and we had our own pool. It was shaped like a palm tree. So amazing. These are the things that where your brand gets transmitted. So for this type of guest, we definitely think a lot more about how to create that experience, how to make sure that they have. We do it for people who are booking cheaper stays as well, but we think a lot more about how, okay, what can we do to perfect your stay within the property? Because these properties they're a bit more expensive, and what most people will do is they'll spend more time there. So we really think about, okay, what is the service that you would like to get? We have chefs, we have massage, we have babysitters, we have all these additional services that we wrap around that kind of experience. And that's how we become more effective for that particular segment of guest. And then we don't have the whale yet. The whale, according to Brian, was things that are just so crazy, nobody has ever thought of it yet. That would be like maybe having somebody stay at Uluwatu Temple, or maybe somebody staying at the Bupati's house, right, in Bali. So those are things that become essentially just PR, right? People think about it, and that's even brand exposure. So I guess to answer your question, we sort of divide it into two segments, right? There's the segment that are consuming tuna, and for that, we try to enrich the out of accommodation experience, the type of things that they would do outside of their stay. For the in accommodation experience, the dolphin type experience, we try to think about ways that we can improve what happens within their stay. It's a good question because it's hard to automate this, right? It's hard to even make it, it's hard to say that we're being hospitable when we're letting a machine talk to you, right? It's hard to say that we're being hospitable when we're sending you to a website, right? So this is a little bit like being an entertainer, like being a magician, like being a good host. There is a very, very difficult training process, and not everyone has it. It's almost like comedy, right? It's the timing, it's the content. If you want to get it just right, you have to be, I think the only way that we can actually effectively develop it is we have to have a hospitality culture. So we are very careful about how we engage with each other on a day-to-day basis so that we can transmit that energy to our future guests. But yeah, I think a lot about that. It's if you're more efficient, sometimes you become less effective because you're being more you're delegating to the machine. Although I have hope. I saw this Alibaba hotel in China, and everything was automated, and apparently the guests love it. So you don't even, like, when you check in, there's just one person, and he scans a QR code, and he just gives you, I think you can self-check in, right? Your door has like a camera on it, so you just put the QR code, and that opens your door. Your room service is brought to you by robots. There is a machine at the bar that makes food for you, and then there's no waiters. The machines deliver your food to your table. So I was like thinking, wow, this is pretty intense. And a lot of people would give that 5 stars. I think if that's the experience, if that's what you're promising, then that's fine, right? But if you're promising something else, then having that can be confusing. So I guess to summarize, you can control this a few ways. You can control your reality by doing better and more effective things, but you can also control it by setting the guest expectation. So if you tell them that this is what they're going to get, then they shouldn't have a problem with it, right? If you are saying, all right, I'm going to set up this tent in the middle of a jungle, and you'll be sleeping with, like, nature under the stars, and there's bugs, then that's part of the experience, right? It can be enjoyed, or you can suffer, but at least we're upfront and we told you what to expect. So I think SX question.
Okay, thanks for the answer. How about it, Alia? Did your question
Thank you,
answered?
Mr. Jing. That's a very insightful and holistic answer. So I guess what you're telling us is more of like the future of hospitality. Like it's all automated and all that. Yeah, maybe we can expect that in a few years later. Thank you.
No, not all that, Alia. I'm just saying, like it could be that way, but hospitality, I think, will always be a human thing. At the end of the day, humans will decide what other humans experience. We're just trying to think of like, can you do that effectively? If you do that effectively, it would be because you have created the right expectations to your guests, and they would expect that these things are going to happen, and they could be delighted by that these things are happen. But that part, I think, humans need to also manage those expectations.
Great. So it goes back to the audience, right? Like
Yeah.
what the guest expects to happen.
And the same audience might have different expectations depending upon
Sure.
their condition, right? You expect differently from a wedding than you'd expect from a bachelor party, than you expect from, let's say, a friend get together, than like a student get together. These scenarios change, and the expectations change with them.
Okay,
Okay, thank you very
nice.
much.
Thank you, Alia. Thank you, Mr. Jing. Actually, we still have around 15 questions left from the Slido. So usually if the time is up, we send the unanswered questions to the email of presenter. So if you have any spare time, you can answer and give back to us the question.
Absolutely. I'd be very happy to.
And okay, so for the last questions and also for closing statement from you, it's the question from James. What is the one most valuable life lessons and one most valuable business lesson that you can give?
Wow, that's a hard one. Okay. What's the most one valuable life lesson? You know what? Okay, I need to say this. What I've noticed in my life is this. I mean, I think I'm pretty well educated, and I think most of the people here are well educated. You know, you guys go to one of the leading institutions in the country, in the region. I would say, don't underestimate the power of persistence. Never underestimate the power of persistence. And the reason I say that is this. I think when I look back on it, I see a lot of really smart people that I grew up with. Some of them never really made it. Some of them did terrible things. Some of them, like, got outcomes that nobody would want to share in public, right? So they started off so promising. What happened? I think they gave up at some point, right? They gave up and they said, you know what? I'm just gonna accept that I'm a normal person. I'm just gonna accept that I can't do any better than this, what I can currently do. I'm gonna accept that my college was the highlight of my life, right? And they start fading away. They start becoming less and less relevant, less and less important. And then what surprises me is that a lot of people who had no background, who came right from nowhere, oftentimes become very successful. The most successful people that I know today, in college, I never would have guessed. I never would have said this person would be someone successful in 10 years. Oftentimes they were shy. They were dealing with a lot of personal issues. They were not very, like, visible even, but they all had one common trait, is that they never gave up. They would fall on their faces over and over and over. They would go through horrendous, like, shameful failures, but they just wouldn't quit. They would keep on moving up. And I think that's a good lesson to have. And that's life and business. I'll combine it. If you can fall down 99 times and stand up 100, you win at the end. You'll win because nobody else will stand, right? I think that's so valuable, especially when you're smart. When you're smart, it's like when you're beautiful. You're gonna rely on that attribute a lot to find success. It's like, oh yeah, I'm smart, I'm top of my grade. But when you start seeing that, my God, my smarts aren't getting me anywhere anymore. Like the problems are not really well defined. I can't get an A at work anymore. You're gonna have to find a different way to find meaning in what you do and finding the way to continue. And it really relates down to this idea of who you are. What do you really want to be? What do you really want to be known for? Find out what that is. That's a different thing for everybody. For me, I really like transforming people. I like when I go to a place and I can see people like here, and then after I leave, they're like a little bit here, right? I like our recent batch of interns. When they came in, they were like really clueless, and now they're fairly confident and they know a little bit more about startups and how to manage things. So for me, that's my passion. And so everything I do is revolved around that purpose. And I'm never going to give up on that purpose because it's a really meaningful purpose for me. Even if I don't make any money, which is kind of like our condition right now, actually. We're not making much money, but we still want to live that purpose every day to the fullest extent. We're not going to give up on that. So I think find your purpose and then persist on that purpose and don't compromise. Steve Jobs says, stay foolish, right? A lot of smart people think that they know things after a while. I realize you're never going to know everything. Interns will teach me things that I didn't know about. And as long as you remain open to the idea that you can always learn and that the journey is never finished, Facebook has a great quote for that. The journey is only 1% finished, right? I think that's a good way to think of it. How am I always never complete? How am I always seeking how to become better at what I do? And as long as you have that, then you have purpose. And when you have purpose, you have persistence. I think you'll be successful, because at some point somebody will just say, screw it, I'm not going to do this anymore. And if you remain, then you'll probably win. Hopefully that helps.
That's really helpful us, a really inspiring speech and discussions this morning. So thank you once again, Mr. Jing, for sharing and also for giving us some enlightenment regarding data science in hospitality industries. It's greatly appreciated that the discussion also interesting. Your insight were also fruitful. I cannot imagine other speakers open under their skill set. You open your Trello, Tableau, and other confidential data, if I can say that, to our students so they can learn from the real example in these hospitality industries. Also, Bu Anggita said that she also very pleased with these discussions. Thank you for you, Mr. Jing, such an inspiring discussion, he said. And also, I believe that students learn many things, not only about data science, hospitality, but also about experience in the workplace, like you said before. So I would like to give a gentle reminder to the students. You can fill the feedback forms on the link bit.ly/BV Seminar 2020. Also, if you like to register for BVE Talks, the 6th BVE Talks in 15th of October, please click the link on the chat box, bit.ly/BVXDSC. So that's all. That's conclude the end of sessions of this Capita Selecta meetings today. Thank you very much for your attentions. So we will meet again in 2 weeks with Pak Made Danatangkas as the speakers who will deliver about Industry 4.0 in automotive industries. Thank you. Bye-bye. Keep healthy. See you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Pak Rama and
Thank you very much.
Gita and all ITB students. Thank you so much for having me today. It was a real pleasure. And hope you all have a brilliant weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. But in Bali, I guess every day is holiday. So yes, doesn't matter whether it's weekday or work day.
Thank you.